have a really great friend, my best friend here in Hanover, and he has a saying that I absolutely love, and he says, your mother will be the best friend you ever have in your life. And I happen to be being given a gift of a great mom in my life, and a lot of my creativity and emotional, being able to express myself and everything are a lot to do with my mother. And in the background you're going to be hearing a song that is Time After Time by Cyndi Lauper, and I'm just going to flash a couple photos right now. And that photo there was my mom and I. My mom is kind of like, she's not losing her mind, but I think over time that it's questionable, like how practical thinking she might be. And it kind of scares me because sometimes I think she's completely out in left field. So a couple years ago I decided that I would take advantage of, like we'd always done family trips when we were kids. And so a couple years ago I decided that maybe I should take her away on a vacation, just her and I as adults. And she would be just under 60 years of age, and myself would be 33. So as a Mother's Day gift for her, I took her down to the Dominican, and we had the most amazing trip ever. Everything about the trip was perfect. Like, there was nothing that went wrong, and my sister's been taking care of my mom just on the aspect of being around, and I'm 2.5 hours away from my mom, so that doesn't work out always so well. But I knew that my mom was struggling to walk with the lifetime of obesity, and her joints and everything are not working as properly as they should. And I never realized how bad she actually was until I had taken her to the Dominican. And the resort that I had stayed at was the Bavaro Club Resort, or I can't remember the name of it, but it was a really large resort, and the people were so amazing. They would pick us up in the golf carts and take us down to our rooms and stuff like that, because over time they got to know that my mom wasn't able to walk as far as she was able to. If she was in a sitting position, I would have to help her to get up, and if she was sitting on the beach, then I would have to have people assist me to lift her up. And even to step up into the bus rides that we took, it was really difficult. And I'm going to show another picture right now, and this picture was taken. Mom and I decided to do a catamaran jet boat tour, so it was a two. So we took a jet boat out to an island, we stayed there for a few hours, and then we came back on the catamaran, so I'll show you a picture of that. So in this catamaran then was sitting out in the middle of the ocean, and we had to go from the jet boat onto that catamaran while the waves were swooning up and down. And it didn't look like there was going to be that much, but we allowed everybody else to load on top of that, onto the catamaran, and then I went onto the catamaran, and there's my mother, and she is the last off the boat. And they had 5 Dominican people that were part of that tour there, trying to help her go from one boat onto the catamaran. And while they attempted to lift her up, like to pull her upward, the boat had slipped backward, and a big swell on the wave came, and my mother was hanging off the side of the catamaran. And because she was so heavy, it was 5 people using all their muscle power to prevent her from falling into the ocean. And what was the difficult thing is that we were loading where our lines were coming down to support the sail, and so they got 5 Dominican people, and so people are grabbing at her like shorts and everything, and so they've been able to pull her up onto the side of the boat lying down. And the problem was that she was, their feet were on this side of a line, and the rest of her body was like her waist was actually still hanging off the boat, and her waist, or sorry, her chest and head was on this side of the string. So they had to actually move her around the string, but I have to move her back over the ocean. And it was so sad. They moved her like she was, I'm sorry, Mom, but they moved you like you were a beached whale. And it was so hard because you weren't able to use your legs to be able to prevent your situation. And there are these 5 people hanging on to you for dear life. And it was the most traumatic thing I think I've seen as an adult. Seeing that your mother is not the superstar that you thought she was when she was a kid. Realizing that she was very vulnerable. And they moved her and she was lying on her side. And it was the most upsetting thing you ever see. And you can see that her clothes are all like been grabbed at and everything. They were all stretched. And it was just horrible. It was absolutely horrible. And my mother they finally lifted my mother up to a standing position, and she walked over, she goes, "I made it," all really excited about it. And my mother sat beside me and she started to cry. And it was so awful because it was just like, your mother is no longer your like superhero. You're realizing that she's also vulnerable and that she actually has a time frame of when she will be leaving us. And she started to cry, and she was so embarrassed that she was not able to use her legs and be able to prevent the situation was. And in the background was the Time After Time by Cyndi Lauper playing as she started to cry. And then I started to cry with her because it was just such a moving moment, and the song was so appropriate that, you know, time after time, that you really are limited to time. And it was just so horrible. It was, but such a magical moment, and I'm going to freeze to this photograph. In that photograph there, a tourist that was sitting across from us, I asked him to take a photograph catching that exact moment of realizing that my mother is vulnerable. And it was such a harsh reality, but I so appreciate being able to take her away. And she's not dead yet. She won't be dead for many, many years, but it was just a very groundbreaking moment for me.